I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome everyone to the June 16th, 2020 Board of Selectmen meeting. Let the record show that 4 members are present. Ms. Deely, Ms. Steele, and Mr. Conway, and myself with Chairman Bramwell shortly to follow. We're going to dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance. Now I just need to find the agenda. Bear with me for 1 second.
Hello.
Oh, hey, Brad, how are you?
I'm confused.
We're doing fine. We just got underway here. So please.
Okay, so as long as you can run it. I'm present, but if you can just run it for me, because I'm going to keep trying to get on visually, but I get confused enough with it when I have everything in front of me. So if you can run the meeting.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, fine. Super, thanks.
Sure, no problem. So we have nothing under appointments and resignations, licenses and permits.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We have the 2 requests to amend their licenses for outside seating. The first is Mac and Waltz at 363 Old Colony Road. So they've put a 40 by 20 foot tent in the front parking lot along the front of the building, and that'll seat up to 30 in a max, and 3 rows of tables set a minimum of 6 feet apart, and aisles of a minimum of 6 feet.
Excellent. Who's the other one, Mike?
And we've also put Jersey barriers out there. The other one is Alberto's. Alberto's has added a fenced-in, temporary fenced-in area in their parking lot, 37 by 84, and it will sit a maximum of 42 people with 13 tables.
Excellent. Any comments from the board?
I just have one. I'm looking at the pictures. Mike, did you read in the application that the tent for Mac and Waltz is closed?
Oh. The tent is open.
The tent is open? Okay.
Okay, so take these one at a time. It's going to be a roll call, Mike, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so Chair would entertain a motion to revise the license for Mac and Waltz.
So moved.
Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Deely?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
I too vote yes, so it'd be unanimous. Chair would entertain a motion for the revision to the license for Alberto's.
So moved.
Second. Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Deely?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
I too vote yes, so unanimous. Thank you. Under announcements, Mr. Conway, have any announcements?
Yes, there are 2 this evening. This point, Parks and Rec is running 2 upcoming programs. The first is a sunset cruise on the reservoir in conjunction with Norton Kayak on June 28th at 5:30. All proceeds raised go to support Parks and Rec. It's a great way to see the beauty of Norton up close while supporting PNR at the same time. The second is a series of beginner line dance programs starting on July 6th at Everett Leonard Park. The class is meant for beginners with little or no dance experience. We seem to run Mondays 7 to 8. It's $40 for all 5 classes or 8 classes for $10. You can register for either of these at the Norton Parks and Rec website, www.nortonma.org/parks-and-recreation. I've also seen these plastered all over social media, so they should be out there. That's it.
Excellent. Does anybody else have any announcements that they would like to share?
No.
Okay. Seeing none, then we're going to move on to, oh, yes?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to mention that the Industrial Development Commission is going to have an information session tomorrow on the marijuana bylaw proposal, and then just a review of the application process. We're going to have a panel discussion as well with some folks who we've spoken to in the past, representing retail establishments as well as cultivation facilities.
Okay, great. Thank you. And they would be able to figure out the Zoom information on the IDC website, and I'm assuming the town website.
So it's been posted on Facebook and it is on the town calendar because we're
Okay.
formed for the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, under new business, we have a review and or vote on a 1/12 budget units.
Yeah, the 1/12 budget, we have to do it just in case something happens where we're going so late with the town meeting. Hopefully we won't need it, but you have the budget before you. What the 1/12 budget is, all departments were asked to present what they actually feel they're going to end up spending in July. And so the total is $8,060,790.46. $6,450,489.78 is for the town. Water is $1,275,979. And sewer is $334,321.68. Some of the major items in there that we're hit with in July is the Bristol County retirement payment of $3 million. Health insurance is $700,000, and our insurances for the town, property insurance, liability, workers' comp is $625,000, and water, and the sewer department has a payment of $220,000 to the MFA.
Anybody have any questions or comments regarding the 1/12 budget? Well, actually, Mr. Unit, so this would be reflective of the fact that schools would have a lower take in July than they probably would in September or.
Yeah, for the schools, it's about 600. It's 600,000 for July.
Okay.
And so the process is that the board would approve the 1/12 budget. The town clerk would certify that you voted on it tonight. And then the town accountant will send that to the Department of Revenue for approval.
And then if they don't give the approval, they just send it back for us to reconsider to some degree. Would they send it back with comments?
I'll let the town accountant answer that.
Hi. So basically, if they do deny it, they will be asking me questions regarding the amounts that they're considering to be excessive or not enough. And I will be replying to them depending on whether or not they're satisfied with the response. They'll approve it at that point. If we have to increase the budget or reduce it, then you guys will have to meet again and revote it. But I'm pretty confident that if we approve this tonight, we should be fine, and it will be approved as submitted.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or comments from the board?
Just one more time, what was the total amount? Sorry, it's in little pieces.
The total amount, including water and sewer, is $8,060,790.46.
8 million 60,790 dollars and 46 cents.
46 cents.
46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46 cents. 46
Mike, is that total anywhere on the document that we received?
On the last,
Because mine ends with the water enterprise. It doesn't look like it's a total across the board. I'm just trying to figure out where the big items were that you had mentioned and.
the total for the town that I mentioned is, if you look on the page before water and sewer, 6,450,489.78.
That's everything except water sewer.
Right,
Okay.
right. And then the next two pages, the sewer enterprise, 334,321.66, and 1,275,979. That makes up the total.
Okay. And then you had mentioned and I'm looking at the employee benefits, right? That was the one that you said needed to be paid out, the 3.12 million.
Right. And the health insurance right below that.
Under other personnel services, it's 676,000.
Right. And then if you look down on that same page under 940, miscellaneous 940, the 615, 718, that covers the insurance payments that I mentioned, plus gasoline.
Okay, and does that, so I see that, to James's point about if they think it's too much or too little, like when I see miscellaneous charges and expenditures, is this the document that we give to the state, or is there something else that says under that 940 item, the charges and expenditures include what you just mentioned?
James?
Again, initially, I'm going to give them the same document that you have in front of you, and I'll let them ask me if they need more backup or not. My understanding is that they're getting swamped with every single counter, and they don't want a lot of detail. They just want, they're going to be looking at how much we spent, how much our regular budget is, and they're probably going to be looking at percentages. And as long as I explain to them that over $3 million of the proposed $8 million is going to Bristol County retirement, and we have to also make some long-term debt payments in July. Pretty confident that they will approve it as submitted. But I do have all of the backup if they need it too, and I'll submit it to my DOR rep.
Yeah, I didn't mention that part. There's 1.25 million in debt payments in July.
Is that, I see the item for maturing debt, but that's only 169,000, so is that just across many categories?
The one department has $1 million all by itself on debt, long-term debt.
I see it. It's okay at the bottom. So James, I mean, I understand that they don't want to have a lot of detail. My only suggestion would be for those items that you know, like, because I did the same thing. I looked at the 112 column and then I looked at the recommendation, and those items that specifically are, you know, way beyond a 12th of the budget, to just provide detail on the line item that it is, just so that the process is faster. It looks like there's only a handful, you know.
When I submit the document tomorrow, I have to log into the gateway system for the state, and I will be uploading the PDF file of the document. And there is a section for comments where I'm going to submit an explanation of all of the big items and what they are.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for James or for Mr. Units? Okay, seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve a 1/12 budget to be submitted to the Department of Revenue.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Ms. Daly?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Thank you, James.
Thank you guys for working on this. I'm sure it wasn't an easy task.
Well, all the departments did a great job, and James obviously and Michelle did a lot of work on it, but everyone was very helpful.
Hopefully it's off or not, and we won't.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the only item under new business, under old business, review and or vote on town meeting articles.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we have representatives from the Water and Sewer Department here tonight. So if we could revisit Article 9, the FY21 capital plan. There was a question on the plan previously about the replacement of the 2 wells.
Absolutely.
So if Frank is on, if Frank could talk about the 2 well replacements.
Frank, you still with us? He may have stepped away because he's not on mute. And I thought I saw Luke Grant from the Water and Sewer Commissioners on here as well, but I don't seem to see him anymore either.
I'm here.
Oh, hey Luke, how are you?
Great, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. In Frank's absence, do you want to speak to this, or?
I don't have I don't have his documents in front of me, but I know what we're up to. The well 5, I'll call it a secondary test well. We drilled after preliminary 2-inch wells. I'll call them test wells were drilled, and we got those wells developed, tested the quality and the yield with the consultant of the hydrology consultant from Weston and Sampson. We thought it was prudent to go ahead and drill a little larger secondary test well. It's an 8-inch well. That well has been drilled, and the results are very good, both on quality and production. So we're looking to go ahead and put in a well, a permanent well for well 5. That one, the current well 5 has a lot of issues. It's casing has internally begun to collapse and is somewhat at risk of failure in the 6 or 8 month period. It's not long for the use. It's working now, but we really got to get this other one going.
Hey guys, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I don't know. The phone keeps dropping out.
You just wanted me to run with the ball, Frank.
You can take it if you want it.
I brought them up. Were you able to hear me?
I was not. I ended up signing off and coming back on.
God, good work. I informed the group about the well 5 test wells and the secondary 8-inch test well. If you want to take it from there, that would be great with me.
Sure thing. As long as you guys can still hear me. A while back, we had gone with 5 different phases for construction on both replacement wells for 5 and 6, based on basically a decline over the years in the available water from both of these sites. Things could have been done differently many years ago, and we've been in a better situation than we are now. That's water under the bridge, so to speak. Phases 1 and 2 have been completed. That was test drilling and permitting for approval, including some well pumping tests that were done with some small 2-inch wells to find specific locations by the geoprobes that were done, and come up with specific depths that we wanted to remain very similar to what is existing now, so we can come up with the same water quality, just better yield. So phases 1 and 2 have been completed. Moving forward, we still have 3, 4, and 5 remaining as far as phases go. There is some additional work that has been completed out of phase 3, and that was the engineering and design based on locations that were found to be promising. There was some pump tests that were done to indicate the water quality and the yield. There was some moving around that had to be done. We actually found a couple sites that had impressive water yield, but not impressive water quality based on the gravel pack in the ground. So we've come up with the next best, and there seems to be a match of water quality and yield. So there will be some additional pumping that will be done to make sure the location that we picked is prudent for a larger well. And again, this is one thing that we've come up with. The drilling of the first well that was there went down to a specific depth. I don't have that paper in front of me. And the second well that we went and drilled slightly larger to verify the yield, we were actually able to get it to go almost 20 feet deeper. So it means if you're on either a piece of ledge or a rock, something that stopped the original small drill. So the deeper you go, the better quality of water that you get, and the less minerals you have to worry about when you have more ground to filter them out. Phases 3, 4, and 5 will complete the construction of both wells, 5 and 6. We do not have many options left with well 5 or well 6. They are two of our oldest wells. Well 5 was built actually in 1972. 6 was actually 94, but it was not drilled that deep. They hit some bedrock or possibly some false bedrock there. So both are suffering for different reasons. 5 obviously because of the age and the impact that pulling water from one location for that duration of time has had on the gravel pack. There is only so much you can do to increase your yield after cleaning. Basically the iron and manganese, which is naturally forming in groundwater in New England, will actually pack itself in so tight that you cannot pull the water through there quickly enough. And you end up noticing that your drawdown level in your well, which is the distance from the water when it's in the off position or static down to the top of the pump, is so much so that you have the possibility you could entrain air into the system, so you actually have to slow down your production. It defeats the whole purpose of having a large well if you can't use it to its capacity. And that's what happens with the well as it ages over time. One other thing that can happen is the deterioration of the screen itself. And that is actually what has happened at well 6 a few years back. The screen had failed in one area during a cleaning process, and we actually had to re-sleeve, which means we put a smaller sleeve down inside the existing well. This further limits the possibility of additional cleaning later on and shortens the lifespan. It is basically a Band-Aid. Well 5, which was just cleaned before transition to the treatment plant, basically is showing the same signs of failure. There is some deterioration in the screen, and we do not have any options to do any additional work on this location based on the size of the screen that was in place originally back in 72. It was very conservative, so the holes are very small. If you think of a cheese grater and some of the smallest holes that are on there to keep these small fines out of the well, that's basically what the screen on a well would look like with different variations. And any additional screens that you would try to put in there to, again, buy some time will further decrease the availability of pumping water from that site. Our only options, I think we had mentioned this quite a while ago, are basically to look at replacement. And this is something that was talked about for some years now here with the town. Before taking the position that I have now, I know there was a letter I was involved with, and the primary operator at the time had written to the at the time superintendent expressing our concerns and showing the yield that had declined over the years. This is going back some almost 13 to 15 years now. So you can imagine the decline we've seen since then. It doesn't get better on its own. It's well overdue for replacement. And in my opinion, it should have been done prior to the treatment plant. We may have seen some different numbers going through the plant. We may have seen some different water quality now that we are moving the existing locations. Nevertheless, the plant was designed, and it was over-designed, knowing that the possibility down the road, we wouldn't be either adding an additional well or relocating wells. So the plant is designed to handle new wells, additional flow, and changes in water quality as far as iron and manganese levels go. And we really need to push forward. This is not something we can kick down the road. I don't want to get into the what if, but if we had a catastrophic event with either one of these large production wells, I think you can all surmise what would be going on here in town. The amount that we're asking is based on an average, and there is also additional funding that was approved at, I believe, the Maytown meeting for remaining funds to be used for additional water improvements. That amount that was approved is $457,808.63. That was left over from the Reservoir Street project. If you guys remember way back when, the Reservoir Street project was supposed to include Elm Street. There was some miscommunication with the previous persons in charge here. They were not able to get Elm Street done as part of the project, so that's why that additional funding is in there. It wasn't an oversight. It wasn't an overestimate on the job. That would have been the cost to do Elm Street, which was recently paved, and there was a moratorium on that. So those fundings there would be added to the $850 that we're asking for this article to bring it up to a total of what the estimated project cost for the remaining phases 3, 4, and 5 for both wells 5 and 6 total $1.3 million. Sorry, that was long-winded. I hope you guys heard me, and I don't have to say it all again. Do we have any questions?
Could you repeat that?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Yeah, no, actually, I do have one question. How is, and it's slightly off topic, but you did bring it up, so I just want to. Are we getting are we yielding the results that we had hoped for with the treatment, the filtration center?
The filtration plant is doing phenomenal, as we expected it would. The aggressive flushing program that was honestly a trial and error worked out extremely well for the town. We've seen major improvements. We have sample results to show throughout the town as far as the iron and manganese levels throughout the town have dropped significantly. And as additional flushing is done, obviously we can only do that certain times of the year based on yield. And there are other implements that come up, fire flow testing. Unfortunately, fires in town. There's hydrant flow testings as developments want to go in, or construction needs to have a fire pump. So these are all additional things that actually induce flushing of the system that's outside of the normal parameters, but obviously does actually improve the system now that we have the clean water to replace what was in there originally.
Okay, thank you. Does any of the any other members of the board have any questions?
I have a question, Mike.
Yes, Renee.
Frank, you said that the 1.3 million is for the phases 3, 4, and 5. Where, let me ask two questions. Let me start first. So Luke had indicated well 5 was potentially 6 to 8 months from failing. Do you have an estimate on well 6 too? I mean, it sounds just as bad, but I didn't hear a time frame.
Honestly, we partnered these together knowing that we could get a better price and save on some mobilization fees and some contract and mobilization fees to the location. 5 and 6 are basically almost beside each other. They're actually on the same access road that run along the New River. And the problems that we've had at 6, again, if they're not addressed within an extremely short period of time, are going to come back and bite us. We can only clean that well and get it back to a certain percentage of what it originally was. Well 5 right now, we don't have the option to do any additional cleaning. So that one there, unfortunately, is on borrowed time, and 6 is trailing right behind it. It made perfect sense to almost get a bargain price by having the same person do these and just be able to move a matter of feet, instead of actually having to remobilize the crane, the drill. There's a lot involved, and there's a major cost involved with remobilization. I believe Tara is on. She might be able to give a little bit more detail on that. I believe we had talked that it could be between 30 and 50% savings if we do them together as compared to trying to do them separate. And obviously the potential for failure as we go further into the future is obviously imminent. And cost could change depending on how long it does get kicked down the road, and we could see a substantial increase, more than what is anticipated now. Didn't know if you had any questions for Tara. She probably has a little more documents in front of her if she's on.
Tara's on.
I'm here, Frank, so if anybody has any additional questions, feel free to ask.
I don't have questions on that. Frank, just another question. So for the phases 3, 4, and 5, what items are in those phases in addition to well 5 and 6, to the replacement of the 2 wells?
Frank, do you want me to answer that one?
If you have that in front of you, if not, I can grab it right here.
Sure, I can answer that one. So the phase 3 is basically comprised of the production well drilling and pumping test. So once we construct an actual full-scale well, then we would conduct a 48-hour pumping test and approve that as a new drinking water source to replace the existing wells with Mass DEP. Phase 4 is the actual design of the construction work that we would go out for public bidding to actually install pumps, as well as all the electrical work and pipelines, valves, whatnot, to connect the new wells to the existing pipeline that's out there, as well as put some of the telemetry into the stations that are already existing. And then phase 5 is the actual construction of everything. So we're anticipating to complete phases 3 and 4 within the next 6 months or less, with also potentially bidding this winter. So it's a rough schedule.
Okay, so it is all related to the 2 wells, and then you said 6 months to do that. So we do have, for transparency, we will have a risk. I mean, that's really for the actual well. Then it's beyond the time frame, right? If we're expecting that this thing might have, well 5 might have 6 to 8 months, we're cutting it pretty close, right?
Yes, that's our goal, is to get moving as fast as possible with all of this work. Correct.
And what percentage does well 5 cover for water at this point? Like, is it providing 20% of the total water in town?
I'd say, Frank, probably 5 is your biggest source compared to all of the other 4 wells.
Yeah, you're correct. 5, I would say you are looking at between 40 and 50% of what we have for yield. We have cautiously slowed this location down and have tried to have the other wells basically pick up the slack. And we can only do that for so long, and we've been doing that for many years now. And it's a coordinated effort with the treatment operators and the well operators to notice when we get into the critical stages. This goes along with our sprinkler patrol that everybody laughs when we're out there doing it, but there's a reason why we do not allow automatic sprinklers in town, and that is for water conservation. And we want to make sure we have water for drinking and obviously fire protection. This is something that might be looked at long ways down the road when we have some quality water that we may be willing to put on some lawns, but we haven't had it for a long period of time, and honestly, I don't think we're going to be into that position within the next couple of years.
Great, thank you. So it sounds like you guys have a lot of work to do in a short period of time.
Yes, we do.
Thank you, appreciate the info and the details.
Well, you're very welcome.
And let's keep our fingers crossed.
Any further questions?
I do, Mike. Is there any projected cost impact to people on their water sewer bills from this project?
I heard part of that. Was that Jack?
Yes, it was.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Absolutely. I was wondering, is there going to be any cost impact to the water sewer rates as a result of this work?
This project was part of the recent rate study that was done. This exact project is covered under the adjustments that you guys had recently seen back in March. As we move down the road, there is a 20-year comprehensive plan for upgrades in town. Each of those at some point will have a percentage of an impact on the town. As you guys may may know or may not know, we just finished replacing one of the oldest sections of pipe in town on Pine Street. That was over 100 years old. Some of these things, again, have been, for lack of better terms, kicked down the road. And each one of these has great effects on our pressure and water quality and water availability in certain areas of town. It's something that it just cannot be overlooked. And we'll be very cautious as we move forward with our 5-year plan and our 20-year plan, picking the crucial needs areas and handling those. And obviously, we'll address the items as far as cost, as we move forward.
Great. Thank you.
Ms. Conway, you all set? Any further questions for either Mr. Fournier or Mr. Grant? Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming before us. Mike, what else?
So that's part of the capital plan that you reviewed previously. And the recommendation, as approved by the Finance Committee, was to approve the capital plan with $416,150 coming from capital, $34,015 coming from sewer, and $850,000 being borrowed, being paid back from water receipts.
Okay, does anybody have any further questions on the overall capital improvement plan? Okay, seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to support the capital improvement plan as presented by the town manager.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second. Oh, it's Brad.
All right, you guys gotta figure it out. Who's first?
I don't usually get to do this, so I'm.
Oh, yeah, good point, Brad.
We'll let Brad do them all.
Excellent. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Deli?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
Vote yes, so it's unanimous. Okay, Mike, what else?
Yeah, the next article is a request from the Water and Sewer Department to borrow an additional $1.1 million for the West Main Street Sewer Project. And they're here tonight to explain.
Terrific.
So Luke, I can take this if you want, for starters here.
That would be great, Steve. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Steve Peterson from Weston and Sampson. He's the project manager for this sewer. Let's let Steve lead this one.
Steve, if I may, before you start,
Sure.
Mike Units, can you point me to where this particular information is in our packet?
So am I sharing the PowerPoint right now? Oh, no, I haven't hit share yet. So I've got this. Are people seeing the presentation?
No, Steve, we're seeing your Zoom session.
Really?
Did we lose Mike?
Mike stepped away for a moment.
Okay. We got it, Steve.
Now.
Yep, it's up.
Okay. So I don't know how much information you have, so I put together a few slides here. It's like 9 slides to kind of walk you through it. Give you the information you need to understand where we're at, how we got where we're at, and where we're hoping to go from here. So I can go into as much or as little detail depending on how much information you need. So just as some background, I believe you're all pretty familiar with the project out there on West Main Street. So the West Main Street Sewer Extension Project includes a pump station at the Norton Housing Authority property, and then sewers from the Housing Authority down West Main Street to Taunton Ave, and then onto Fillmore Drive and into the pump station that was built several years ago on Wheat. So the real background behind this project started with the housing authority and the school department. The housing authority was in non-compliance with their wastewater disposal. They were looking into their options, one of which was building their own treatment plant. They didn't want to go that route if they didn't have to. They tried to collaborate with the schools, make a connection to the treatment plant at the middle school. That was denied, and in fact, the schools were told that they needed to do something with their treatment plant. So basically, the housing authority and school department approached the sewer commission. We were just wrapping up the comprehensive wastewater management plan, which established the needs areas of the town. I mentioned the pump station at Wheaton, and the phase 1 project was the town center sewer project that had just been completed, and the pump station had just gone online. The next phase of the sewer program was to come out the other side of Wheaton and up Taunton Ave and Route 123 towards the housing authority. At the time of the plan, they were supposed to be, we were looking 3 to 5 years out before we would be moving forward with the plan to go that route. Everyone agreed that the timing was best to move forward then. And it was a lot about, you know, the monies that the housing authority was going to have to sink into a plant and their willingness to contribute those monies to the sewer, as well as the schools not wanting to be in the wastewater business anymore. So that's the background. You're aware, as you're aware, we've been before the town meeting several times on this project. So as I mentioned, the initial appropriation came, you know, on the heels of the meeting with the housing authority and the school department, and that meeting was right before town meeting. We were able to pull together an article and make it happen, get the vote on the town meeting floor so that we could move forward with the project. The numbers at that time were based on the planning documents that were done. Moving forward from there, we were able to actually get into design of the project. The second appropriation was after we had advanced the design to the point where we had more information and understood some of the challenges that this project was going to present. So that's really what the second authorization was. We went forward with the project. We scheduled, and we could see the construction climate rising. Costs were going up. So we scheduled the bid opening for the project right before town meeting so that we would know, we would have our contractors' prices in hand and see if we needed additional money. And that's what the third appropriation, it was based on the actual bids that were received and gave us the ability to award the contract. And where we are today is we're talking about additional challenges that we've run into, a need for additional funding, and we can go into that more in the next slides. One point to make here is under this, you know, currently we have 5.7 million in authorizations. Both, we have the authorization to borrow 5.7 and the authorization to spend 7 million. Because of the non-borrowing revenue sources, so that the towns, between the housing authority and principal forgiveness on the SRF loan, there are monies, you know, close to 2 million that are being contributed to the project that don't actually need to be borrowed. So we don't need to borrow beyond the 5.7 million, but we still need authorization. We're still spending beyond the 5.7. I'm not trying to confuse people, but hopefully that makes sense, is that we have enough money in the borrowing authorizations, but we need more authorization to spend the additional. Just as some background, and this is a presentation we gave for the FinCom last night, just so you know, we're very similar. So the current project out here on West Main Street involves 54 connections, which ultimately adds up to a total of 160 betterment units, which we refer to as EDUs, equivalent dwelling units. Within the properties that are being connected, there's 23 commercial properties that make up 52 of those EDUs. And just for a little bit of background there, so the equivalent dwelling unit is basically based on what a single-family home would contribute to the sewer in terms of flow, and then everyone's flow is based on that of everyone's betterment is based on that of a single-family home. So commercial properties based on water use, will pay units equivalent to their flows, and how many single-family homes that would equate. So there's 15 single-family homes in the project, so 15 of those EDUs, and then there's multi-unit residential. There's 12 properties out there that are condos, apartments, and those add up to 39 EDUs. And then the big contributors, the big payers on the project are the Norton Housing Authority and the Norton Public Schools, which are not paying through betterments. They're paying based on their flow, and so theirs are calculated different. It's important to note that although there's only 54 properties on the project that we're building now, this provides service for future expansion for the entire established needs areas of the sewer program. So another 700 properties will ultimately, over time, be connected to this project through future sewer extensions. So to date, the total gravity sewer on this project is 6,500 feet. We've installed 3,000 feet to date. So they've installed from the pump station at Wheaton all the way out Fillmore Drive and Howard to Taunton through the intersection with Route 123 and up just past Fernandez Circle on 123 at this point, on West Main Street, working their way towards the schools and ultimately up to the Housing Authority. So the issues driving the cost increase right now, the biggest thing is the continued, we continue to find additional rock beyond the estimated quantities. So to put it in perspective as to where we are now, so I said on the previous slide, we've installed 3,000 feet of the pipe, so about 46% of the pipe has gone in. We had estimated 2,000 yards of rock based on the information we had. We've currently pulled out 1,000 yards. So 46% of the pipe, we've incurred 50% of the ledge or rock. A lot of that on Taunton Ave was boulders. Where we are currently, out near Fernandez Circle, we've encountered solid ledge at very shallow depths. We're currently at the toughest part of the job. The sewer is 16 feet deep. In order to be able to just get through this section and then get back to shallow sewer, following the grade of the road. And we're encountering rock, 1 to 2 feet below grade. So the contractor is dealing with a significant amount of rock in the trench where we are now. We knew there was going to be a lot of rock out here. It's proving to be more than we even anticipated as the ledge in our current locations is creeping up between the borings and coming in at higher elevations than was previously anticipated. Another thing we've run into is the means and methods removal of the rock. Contractor has been hammering. Another method would be to use blasting, which requires the contractor to get a separate permit from Mass DOT. We feel that blasting would be more efficient through the area they're in now. They're struggling to get the permit. So it's proven challenging with Mass DOT to get the authorization to use a different method to remove the ledge in the current area that we're in. I will say that after we get through the deep cut that we're in right now, we're going to, over the next, 500 to 700 feet, we'll start coming back up to more reasonable depths. The last 2,000 feet of the sewer is all about 7 to 8 feet deep, which, you know, where the rock is encountered, it will be easier to deal with. You know, at this point, I guess to sum it up, our revised estimate based on what we've encountered and assuming we're going to continue to encounter difficult conditions with the rock through this deep cut is 4,000 yards. And that's what our numbers that we're talking about here are based on. 4,000 yards of rock total in the end. The other thing we've run into is uncharted utilities. You know, we had issues on the other side of campus, and we knew it was going to be challenging. The side that we came through this year was significantly more inundated with utilities. We used every method available to us to try and identify everything that was there, you know, from the existing mapping to ground penetrating radar and test pits. And it still proved, you know, that it still proved to be a mess, and with a lot of things that until we dug the trench, we just didn't know where they were. So there were certainly delays and differing subsurface conditions that were encountered along the entire length of Fillmore and into Howard. State Highway, more of the same. We knew there were a ton of utilities out there. We've got most of them mapped, but not all of them. And all it takes is you run into a couple, you know, the Verizon building right on there on Taunton Ave. There were a bunch of additional conduits that Verizon didn't know existed, or didn't tell us if they did, if they didn't mark them. And so there were some challenges going through there in terms of uncharted utilities. We are, at this point, through what we would consider that intersection from Taunton Ave through Mansfield Ave definitely has the most going on in terms of the underground utilities. So we are through that, but there's still a lot of utilities in the road that we need to deal with, both while we hammer and find space for our utility for the sewer. So that's a big part of the cost increase, and the other part of that, basically related to those same two things, is really the production. You know, the costs and the estimates are based on, you know, reasonable assumptions for production. We've been at Hernandez Circle. You know, that's where the contractor ended in November, and he's been struggling to make progress through that area. So production is down, and we're trying to project out how that production is going to impact us, and that affects the auxiliary costs. You know, the longer you're in the road, you know, the longer you have safety details and construction oversight. So, you know, every extra day, extra week it takes you, there are costs associated with that. So those are the big drivers, you know, the construction related and production related in terms of where we're at. So kind of to sum those things up, we've got of the $5.7 million appropriation, we've expended $3.5 million to date. We ran an estimate to complete, understanding that we need to make sure we have enough to finish this project. We don't want to get in a position where we have to stop, because that's only going to cost more money and time, and we're trying to avoid that. So the additional request of 1.1 million is kind of broken down, or is broken down here, the stuff I talked about on the previous slide. You know, $500,000 of it is the construction cost, the additional ledge that's being encountered, and then the significant reduction in production. You know, basically the safety detail costs are more than doubling. You know, if production continues the way it is now, and the hope is that it will get better, as well as the construction oversight, and then there's a contingency in there. So that's a basic breakdown of where the 1.1 million comes from. you know, that we've talked about this every time we talk about the project in terms of when the project is done, you know, so it's being paid with the, you know, we've got about 1.8 million being contributed by Department of Housing and Development. Community Development, sorry, I forgot one of the letters. Department of Housing and Community Development. So that's a big piece of what's paying for the project. The schools are a big piece of what's being improved here. So they're paying a share, you know, obviously through taxes, a share of the costs equivalent to the flows that they're contributing into this system. And I will say with the schools, you know, at this point, this is obviously fronting both the high school and the Yale school, but it gives the schools the immediate ability to connect the middle school and the Solomonese school based on the fact that currently the high school and Yale school pump the opposite way down Route 123 to the treatment plant at the middle school. So if we, and they have to be taken out of that treatment plant. That plant wasn't designed and is not meeting permit based on those properties connected to it. So as we take the high school and Yale school out, the middle school will have the ability to use that same force main, decommission their treatment plant, put in a pump station, and they can pump the other way through that force main up to the pump station at the housing authority. So sewer betterments are another part of the financing. We have the 106 properties, basically the 54 properties that encompass 106 betterment units. So some of the cost is being recovered through betterments. With the SRF loan, you know, this is one of the non-borrowing items. There is principal forgiveness, meaning basically there's a percentage of the loan that you just don't have to pay back. So it turns into like a grant, and that's a little over $100,000. We use money from the annual payments to Norton, coming out of the sewer budget, and all in all, it's a 20-year payback for all of these combined sources. So some things to consider if we have to terminate, if we're not able to finish the project at this point. There's obviously significant costs and downside associated with that. Housing authority's already contributed $760,000, and there's another $1 million that they will be contributing. To date, $2.9 million in SRF reimbursements have been realized. That would need to be go to long-term borrowing and be paid back. It would need to be paid back without betterments. We wouldn't be able to assess betterments if we don't front the properties. Both the housing authority and the public schools would need to revisit solutions for their wastewater disposal and treatment. The pump station at the housing authority is built. It's 85% complete. We would have to do some work to decommission that. There would be contract termination or settlement costs. Any future extension under the comprehensive wastewater management plan would not be possible. This sewer needs to go in for the rest of the needs areas to have the ability to connect to the sewer. And assuming at some point this project was resurrected, there would be additional costs to resurrect the project. So I think I've hit home on these points. You know, it's obviously unfortunate that the costs continue to mount here, but the benefits of the project remain the same in terms of the value that it provides to the town and the housing authority. I guess I went through that quick. hopefully I provided you with the information you need, and I guess we would open it up for questions.
Thank you for the information. Does anyone on the board have any questions of Mr. Peterson?
I do have a few questions.
Yep, Ms. Conway.
So I guess, start at the beginning. What was the original project approval cost? Was that the 3.32?
Yes.
Okay. So with all the various adds, we are now adding more than the original cost of the project, right? It's about 3.4 and change, 3.5?
Correct.
Okay. Was any more technical work done prior to the start of the project to determine the extent of the ledge?
So
Second time you guys have come back looking for.
yeah, I get it. So the first number was done with very little information and very little time. So the initial number was just based on planning a line on a piece of paper going down Route 123. When we came back, so we had an opportunity to do borings when we came back with the preliminary design number. So at that point, we had better information. We still didn't have all of the information, and obviously continued to encounter things beyond the information that was collected. As well as I had talked before, at the time we opened bids, we were in a climate where all projects were coming in significantly higher. We hit a time when there was a significant rise in construction costs, which is a part of the problem. Right. So hopefully that explains a little bit of the numbers, where they come from.
Okay. What's the degree of confidence that this number is the final number?
We feel that we've been very good, conservative. We really projected out. I'm hopeful that production will ultimately be better when we get through this deep cut and back into some, shallower sewers that are more buildable. I mean, where they're banging now at 14 feet of rock, the deeper you get into the rock, the harder it is. So it's just exponential how hard it is. So we've made projections that production is going to continue to be challenging, and we're hoping that the production will improve and get back, to more reasonable timeframes. It's going to be slow through ledge, and we knew that, but hopefully it's going to get back to better. But we're projecting it to continue to be slow. And then the ledge, it's the big item going from 2,000 yards to 4,000 yards. We ran several estimates, starting to, just project, where we're seeing borings where we know there's rock, not just kind of look at it in terms of the level between the borings, but assuming it's going to continue to creep up between the borings like it has. So we ran several different scenarios, and we came up with so I said we've used 1,000 yards to date. We came up with between 1,500 and 3,000 more yards, with the 3,000 more yards being the most conservative estimate, and that's where the 4,000 total yards that we're using right now comes from. So it is based on a conservative estimate.
Okay. And what's your projected end date for the entire project?
So the production assumptions are based on about 30 more weeks of construction. So they've got a ways to go.
Would that
They're going to be
this
out
calendar?
there for a while. And there's a good chance that they'll be able to improve on that, but these numbers are based on 30 weeks from now.
So that means it's going to stretch into 2021?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a cost escalation that's built into this number, or is that what your contingency is for?
Yes, that's what the contingency is for.
Okay. And then,
And the numbers are rounded up, a little bit with each to get, obviously the numbers are very round, so there's a little bit more contingency in the numbers too.
okay. And the construction oversight, I'm assuming, is Weston and Sampson. That's part of your fee?
That is correct.
Okay. And what's the total fee you guys are collecting for this?
So our contract was $470 So with the additional money, it will be about 600.
So that was not increased at any of the earlier change orders?
No, this is the first increase.
Okay. And then how, this is my last round of questioning, would be the betterments. How are those calculated and are they applied evenly across all the various properties?
So yes, the betterments, at this point, so the commission's intent is to go with $16,000 per betterment unit. The way the regs are, the last betterments that were assessed were for the Winnicott project, and those were just over 11,000. And they've ENI'd that up to, or, factored that up for 6 or 7 years since those were assessed, to get to the $16,000 number. It's not so ultimately with 106 properties of the total money, they're collecting about 1.7 million in betterments. So it's not a huge chunk of the job, but, a lot of this project benefits the town as a whole, because it's the schools and it's the future areas under the future needs areas that need to be served.
And are the multi-unit residential treated the same as single family? One structure, one connection, or are they?
So not one structure, one connection per unit. So if it's a condominium complex with 6 units, it's 6 bedrooms. Each unit is is treated like a single family residential.
And is that mandated in state law somewhere? Is there flexibility there?
No, so those are in the town, the water and sewer board's rules and regulations. That's what they've established. It's pretty standard. Again, based on the method they're using, there are different methods to assess betterment. Some do it on frontage. We've always felt the fairest is equivalent dwelling unit, based on contribution, flow contribution to the system, not a property that just happens to have more frontage on the sewer than another. So yeah, basically every unit is supposed to equate to a single family home. So if there are 12 units in a condominium complex, they're each treated like a home.
Okay. And how about the Norton Housing Authority? Is that treated as one home as I see that there?
So theirs is totally different because of the contribution they made. They've given way more than any assessment. They've given 1.6 million toward construction and then a $235,000 connection fee. So their total contribution is about 1.9 million. Because, they're using the monies, they had grant or loan monies that they were going to be able to use to build a wastewater treatment plant. And that was the whole start of this project. They were like, we'd rather apply this money to something that doesn't leave us with a treatment plant on our property. We'd rather contribute to something that'll benefit, obviously benefited them, but also benefited the town.
Okay. And I guess maybe this is a question for Luke if he's still on, but in terms of the way the betterments were calculated, is there any flexibility with the way you guys can approach that? Because I think $16K for an average family at this point in time is really onerous to drop on somebody. I think we've spoke before where there's a payback period. I don't know if I'm getting
Yeah.
with that.
So there's 20 years. You have 20 years to pay it back. So it's 16 grand. What is that, like 800? And the interest is 2%, or 2.5%. So the loan is 2%. The interest on the betterment, if you apportion it over time, is 2.5%. But you have 20 years to pay it back.
And that includes the commercial, single-family residential, and
Yep. Anyone assessed a betterment. Yep.
I understand the numbers are high, Jack, that 16,000 is not an easy pill to swallow, but like you guys just noted, it is stretched out over 20 years, and in this area, the gravel is soils area are very poor, so a septic system that you would look at replacing easily costs more than that, and a permanent solution. You know, the very ledge that we're encountering is indicative of the problems you have with the soil there. There are, I'm guessing, a host of residences that are in septic failure right now. They're just not talking about it because they would have to replace their septic system. Just as the housing authority has been in septic failure for several years now, the group that operates that is running slew of pumping trucks there quite often, and it's a really tough situation for the quality of the groundwater that we really need this to go ahead.
And I would just say that it's obviously a balancing act, whatever, and the word fair is thrown around a lot. You know, we're trying to, you know, come up with what's fair, but any that isn't collected through betterments, you know, most of that's coming, you know, going back to the schools or the tax rate, or it has to go somewhere, you know, so we're trying to find the fair share. These are obviously the properties that have the immediate benefit of being able to connect to the sewer, so there's certainly a share that needs to be paid for them. It's not, like in Winnicott, the betterments collected 50% of the cost of the project. We're not close to looking for 50% of the project through betterments because there's just not enough property to support it and have it be reasonable. You know, that 16,000 number would be triple. In some communities, a lot of communities just do 100% betterments. That's how these projects go. Either all the sewer users are going to pay for it, or we're not going to put it in. You know, and that's not what this project is.
This stretch also encompasses a bunch of businesses. The one that is most obvious to all of us is where Rockio's equipment is, the site of the former bank building. I know once this goes through, there will be projects that come and occupy that space, which create more tax revenue and is benefiting. I hear the words. It's not money in our pockets now to put this system in, but it's the old, if we build it, they will come. This is for our future, and we're, as Steve said 20 minutes ago, we're going to get all the way out with future projects to the Salmonese School and that end of town. And unfortunately, those soils are also poor. So this is something we really need, and the amount for each dwelling unit is also fair based on Mass Title V flow. So if you have a complex, a condo complex per se, they treat each condo itself as the basic home, whatever the 3-bedroom home would generate. That's how they do the flow. So it's a flow calculation, and that's what we believe backfed this number that we have.
Right.
Any further questions?
I have some questions, Mike.
Yep, Ms. Telly.
Luke, if I can ask a couple things. Like, I totally understand that we need to invest in order to bring businesses here and make Norton more attractive, right? I get that, but I mean, it comes at what cost? Like, we're over double a project. I mean, I guess my question would be is why, and maybe it's late at this point now that we're looking at even more money the third time around. Why haven't we sought other expertise to try to understand what our costs are going to be given this ledge? I mean, if in any other environment, if you're missing it by 100%, I mean, that's a problem, right? I would expect that a qualified company, an experienced company, especially operating in New England, would overestimate on the ledge. I mean, I moved here from Ohio, and when I bought a house in Norton, the first thing that the homeowner said was, "You're sitting on ledge," right? And he showed me what that was because I had no idea. So this comes as a really big surprise to me that like this continues to be an issue. Like I understand you couldn't have planned for the utilities in the ground, right? That's something that the information either wasn't provided or it wasn't known. I mean, somebody had to know, but it wasn't provided. I get that, but I mean, there comes a point in time where I think you need to step back and say, are we moving forward with the right people involved, or do we need to reassess the situation? Like, because this is a big underestimate, and it's critically important for the town, and it almost feels like we haven't prioritized that.
I understand your question, and it's justified. The option to discover the exact underground condition itself is very expensive. What we did along the of proposed sewer main after the first estimate. So we got permission to do the project at town meeting for that first number. Given that, now we could go ahead and get test borings done to give an accurate portrayal of what we believe the underground structure is. We do them typically at something this length, we do them at 300 feet interval, 300-foot intervals. That drilling comes along obviously with a cost. There's police details and drillers and oversight. And then the other thing that is not initially obvious, in the excavation world, understand that there are structures around these things that we mentioned that we didn't know about. The funny thing is, as you drill, sometimes you impact a live utility. So it's very precise work you have to do. So you really like 50-foot drill increments. As you drill every 50 feet, you run the risk of grabbing something that is 123 and 140. There were old duck banks that the state, maybe they had the information, you can't get it out of them, and it's an old road. So, and as you move down, there are trolley tracks, and it's just a host of other stuff that nobody's located. And now, you know, since the 1980s and 1990s, we have great as-built plans of what's in the road and such, but before that, there are marginal as-built and nobody's around who knows what's there. So you really have to temper your desire for the information, looking at the project and saying, instead of going every 50 feet, some of that money is, in our realistic opinion, better put in the ground just doing the work. And I understand it's kind of it's a haphazard way from your point of view, where I understand, but honestly, this is not like putting an AC unit on a roof. The underground excavation is just a very unprecise thing. The ledge could have been a lot less than it was. We had there are blows per minute that the driller registers and records, and a lot of the ledge was coming back as boulders. I don't want to get too crazy into the rock, but as an excavator myself, the first 1.5 up to 3 feet of the rock that you encounter is actually decayed and fractured by the constant contact with water and freeze and thaw over the years. So that could, with a drill rig, be indicated as boulders by the hits per minute being less than the solid refusal of actual ledge. So it did some investigation, and it led us to believe something that was not correct. There's no way to sugarcoat that. We were wrong. But now, even now, we look at, is it worth going ahead to drill crazy amounts of holes to find out what's there? It's better to just put the money in the ground and continue our project.
So what was the original timeline on this project?
I'm going to have to ask Steve to help out with that one.
Yeah, the initial time frame was that they would be finishing up now. They were supposed to be finishing up in June, July of this year, based on what the production was anticipated to be.
And you mentioned, Steve, on there about blasting, right? You said there's another method to get through the rock. Is that what they're doing now? Are they blasting now?
No, they don't have a permit to do that. We're working, so the contractor has to secure that permit. It's his means and methods. They are still looking to do that in some areas. They've been working on the permit for a few months now and haven't been able to get it secured. We're trying to help them get that to give us another means and methods or method to remove the rock, which would be more efficient, you know, certainly in this deeper area.
Yeah, so I was going to ask that. So what are both the time savings and the cost savings with blasting? And I wonder if it's with somebody else. Do they have what's the word I want?
Subcontract to the blast?
Yeah, I mean, is it in their benefit to pursue a blasting permit, or are they making more money because we're paying them much longer for work? Right? That could be
yeah, I mean, the problem.
It's not so much as that. It's one of the factors I believe now is the DOT is somewhat bogged down from the COVID, so nobody's going to their offices. There's a lot of work going on that they have just too much to do and not enough people hustling things through it. So
They also have legitimate concerns, Lou, too, with, I mean, the blasting out here with all the utilities and the proximity of the homes isn't something they're going to go lightly into. So they definitely are looking for more assurances. But yeah, and so it's a combination of the two.
And so what are the cost savings? So let's take, I don't even know how you'd estimate it, right? What do you guys do? And I listened to the presentation last night at FinCom too. Did you say you're doing like 100 feet sections, 100-foot sections?
No, not even close. I wish. You mean as far as production?
Yeah. So what I want to understand is if you take 100 feet, right, or even take 10 feet for all intents and purposes, like if you blasted instead of using the means that they're doing now to get through this,
Yeah.
What is the difference in time and what is the difference in cost?
So time is, I think the cost to remove the ledge isn't going to be a lot different. There's more things that go into the blasting using their subcontractor and the way the pre-blast survey and everything they have to do. But it's a production thing. They could probably double their production if they were able to blast, as opposed to just hammering on the rock.
And then, so cost is similar. What about time?
Well, if they could double their production, I think they would double it. They would reduce what we're projecting it to take significantly.
And is this project, so for what's been done thus far, like is this in phases where we're attaching people to the sewer? Or is it all the line has to be down and then everybody
It's got to be done because we need the pump station can't be put online until all the sewer is in. It needs to connect.
Is that typical in a project for it not to be
Yep.
phased?
So this is a phase of the overall sewer plan. So this is phase 2. So sewer projects are phased, but this construction is a phase in itself.
And how many total phases are in this project?
There are seven total. So 5 more.
7 phases, and we doubled the
This
budget
is
in
phase
2?
2.
So have you guys considered, I mean, if we're at phase 2, you have 5 more phases to go, and we're at double the amount. Have you considered what other issues are going to crop up in the last 5 phases that are going to require potentially more money?
We will certainly have to look into that before we put anything else. Nothing else has been voted or authorized from a spending perspective, so we would certainly need to go before town meeting like we've done here, and hopefully have better information based on what we've run into on this job. So, yeah.
Can I jump in for 1 second, please? Renee, I think Steve meant to explain that this project is one phase, and there are 5 more phases in our CWMP. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah.
And I think Renee, you took it as there were 5 more phases in this project.
Yes, that's how I took it, Luke.
So did I.
Oh, it's okay. There's a lot to it. 6,000 feet. But Steve's words are correct in that this is one phase of what will be 5 more after this project. You guys were talking too far apart. I don't want either of you to misunderstand each other.
So the overall project, though, so that the project was, Steve, can you go back to that slide, that one where you showed the costs?
This one?
Yeah, that one there. So Luke, just so I understand, all the phases, is that the CWMP?
Right. Comprehensive wastewater management plan.
Yeah.
Okay. So the 3.3 million was just for this phase 2 work that we're talking about now. So in the CWMP, every phase had a dollar value to it.
Okay.
So like phase 1 was the line from the Wheaton pump station that picked up the North School, and that's phase 1, right, Steve?
Correct.
So
And
now
that's done, right?
Yeah.
That
that's
part's
done.
Okay.
With the Wheaton pump station is the low point in the town, so we had to get, in theory, we had to get that first. Everything goes there, and then it gets pumped up to the main that goes to the treatment plant. So now we're in phase 2 of the bigger plan, but this one project is just that phase 2. It's one phase, Renee.
So Luke, does that mean for phase 3, 4, 5, you'd be coming with individual separate lists?
Right, one project at a time. And this is, as Steve said in the very beginning, this was driven by the Woodland Meadows folks coming to us. So, you know, each project, obviously, you can't go out of phase. You've got to do 3 before you do 5, because obviously there's no pipe in the ground. But as time and demand comes, maybe you do 3 later, maybe you do 3 sooner, but we have to get through the madness that is this rock and utilities that we're struggling with now.
And this phase 2 is to get the housing authority online, to get the schools online, and then that strip, just the small strip of 123 for the businesses or the homes, right?
Correct. It stops right at the Woodland Meadows and that gas station. I somehow remember it as Speedway, but now it's something else.
Hess, I think.
That's it. Perfect. Thank you for that.
How many feet altogether this phase? 6,000? 6,500?
6,500.
6,500. And the total project budget is 7.2? Is that what you said?
It's now 6.8.
6.8.
And what's the confidence level that 6.8 is a solid number?
We feel good. There's a lot of conservatism built into the numbers that we're talking about tonight.
So
I think we asked that at the meeting before town meeting last time too.
You did.
It would be imperative that you would ask that, and I'm just here to say that if you can imagine a cross section of the ground, guys, we're twice as deep in the first part of this project as we will be in the next part of the project. So if you imagine, we're digging just that half as deep. So it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be a lot less horrible, if that makes sense.
It's open.
Luke, one more question too. I thought from a previous presentation, you talked about, while a homeowner has to pay for the betterment, right, which is $16,000, they also have to pay to get this outfitted to their homes. And isn't that another $10,000 to $15,000?
It depends on the link to the sewer stub. Each property, individual properties will get a stub, and I know what you're going to say. Well, they have to blast the rock. Some may, but the stubs will be what we call chimney up, so it will not be as bad for homeowners close to the street. Homeowners far away from the street or set back a bit will be somewhat expensive, but yes, there will be an additional cost to hook up to the stub at your property line.
And what are the requirements surrounding that? Like if people have a perfectly fine working septic system, can they choose not to do that?
For a period, it was 2 years. Some years ago, there was a town meeting vote to make it 5 years to hook up.
And is there any financing available for this part, the individual connections to that, or is that something that the homeowners or occupants of multi-use residential would need to do directly? I'm assuming that interest rate would be substantially higher.
Right. Sometimes there are, through the Board of Health, low-interest loans for septic systems, and in some cases that transfers to the sewer connections, but I'm not really sure if that works in this case.
And it's held to income, so it's if you make above a certain amount, then you're not eligible for the loan. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not. I don't want. Okay, thank you, Steve.
So not everyone's going to be eligible for the loans, but yeah. So it can be cumbersome to some of the folks that are going to be asked to hook in.
And what happens after the 5 years if they don't hook in?
Everybody gets a reminder letter and is strongly encouraged to make the connection. We refrain as a rule from charging I don't know if there are fines and penalties, but we refrain as a rule from being a fine-oriented operation. We really just need the flow to go to the plant. So the more users we have, it kind of insulates all the other users from the increases that the system will obviously eventually incur. So more users, less dollars per user.
Hey, do we have any final questions here?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ms. Gill.
I just had a couple, I guess, more observations at this point, because, we're held over the barrel. We're so far into this project right now. We can't not continue going forward. We've got businesses along 123 that are depending on this. But a couple of things. One, the original project, when it was presented to us at 3.2 million, I think, that included, at the time, we were told the 1.8 or 1.9 from the Housing Authority, which made this a very attractive project for the town, and I think may have sold us on it. It's a little disconcerting to me to hear that number was based on little info at little time. To come back and double the cost of the project, and that's a big number. And on top of that, the company that guided us in the project to begin with, who is very well known, knows our town very well, has done other big projects within our town. Why it wasn't considered further, issues like ledge. I understand the other unknown variables. And I would expect that at some point you would have come back for more money anyway, but I never would have expected much money. And then on top of it, the company that we contracted to guide us on this underestimated, and now we have to pay an additional 15% change order, which I just find a little bit annoying. So just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mary. Okay,
Mike, I'm sorry, what, that total earlier was 600,000 that we'll be paying now because of this, and then 470,000 initially?
No, I think that was total, Renee.
Yeah, so that's,
They added to the 450 from earlier.
we haven't added anything yet, but that's what we're projecting in is another 150. So 470 is our current contract.
And then adding in 150, or
Correct.
130.
150.
So 150 is gonna take us to 620.
20, correct.
That's a projection, if production follows the assumptions that we've made.
And no offense to you, Steve, because I know you're just one of many people involved. And if it doesn't and it costs more, Weston Sampson gets paid more. This is just really bothersome to me.
Jack, you're the math guy. Can you tell me, I'm getting an 18% on that. I thought it was 15 earlier.
The total fee is 6.8, 630. No, it's less than 10% total fee. The change order is in the
Oh, I see the 10%.
So I think you guys get the impression that it's very challenging because it feels like we're being blood dry at every turn. And like we have the fox watching the hen house, if you pardon the analogy, where the only person who's losing on this is the town, because I guess, and the residents as well that are on there. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but like Mary said, at this point, we are so far into it that it's really tough to say no. But that contribution, as she alluded to, originally represented more than 50% of the total project, and now it's about 30.
Third of it.
Yeah, I mean that changes the dynamics substantially, especially in a town that is constantly facing financial struggles, especially in post-COVID. So you're getting a lot of the built-up frustration over this and the repeated comebacks for more funding on this. And while I'm on a roll here, what's the plan for the water filtration system, Luke? Is that ready to be turned back to the public, or I know it was shut down for COVID reasons as everything else is opening up. That's been a pretty common ask from people that I've spoken with. Just curious what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Right, Jack. Yep. We're on that every meeting. The last meeting we determined to postpone it at least 2 weeks. The problem at that dispenser is there's no oversight. So barring an attendee or somebody to wipe it down, or all it takes is somebody to sneeze or have an issue and use the machine and give it to the next person, and they, I'll paint a picture. The older person sends a grandchild out to get them 5 gallons of water. The grandchild picks up a friend because they missed them. They haven't seen him in school. The friend's asymptomatic. They bring their grandparent some water, and boom, the grandparent gets the COVID, and we all know what happens from there. So I've looked at it, and I've talked with the other board members and the superintendent, and at this time, I don't think we can open it. And again, it's a 2 week by 2 week basis. More than anybody, I want it open because we're paying rent on a machine we're not using. That's where I live. I'm a cost-conscious Yankee contractor. I don't like spending money that I can't use. So I'm okay with spending the money to rent the machine, but now I don't want to send the machine back because I know we're coming out of this. Our numbers for the COVID are going way down, but I don't want to forge ahead blindly because we have the machine. I want to do it with some kind of a plan. I don't know that we can supply enough sanitizer because I believe if we drop off a 1 gallon push thing like you would your hand soap of sanitizer, I'll bet you're a cup of coffee, Jack, that disappears. You know, I don't, if you guys have solutions of how to keep this thing clean, I'd be willing to listen. I'm at a loss of how to assure each user that machine is not going to get them sick. That's really our number one goal and objective.
And I'm certainly sympathetic to that, Luke, but the alternative is these folks that are now needing to go out into public and grocery stores, and they're getting exposed that way. So there's offsetting trade-offs there, and you know, I understand where you're coming from on that. I think anything you can do to get that message out that it is something that you guys are looking at and thinking about doing that goes beyond the meetings. You know, if you've ever seen the Norton Media Center view counts from all the stuff, if we get to 30 on a meeting, that's a good day. So I think there's a lot of that on that message. So whether it's the Norton alerts or if you guys have a Facebook page or put it up on the website, just so people are aware that it's something that's not being ignored. I think that's currently how people are doing it.
I appreciate that, Jack. And the grocery store analogy, although it is a food product, there are folks at the grocery store wiping down carts and monitoring what goes on even in the parking lot. You know what I mean? It's currently the machine's at the back of an unoccupied, it's occupied by its office staff, but nobody's even going out back there. You know what I mean? It's really a no man's land today, and it's concerning.
And Luke, what are the procedures right now for these automatic fill stations? Because like Simpson Springs is open. Every time I've been there, people have been filling up their gallons. So what are the recommendations that we need to solve for?
It's basically the same thing with you'd be entering a store. The mask has to be on, 6 feet of social distance, wash your hands. I just don't know how to assure everybody, because there are so many, and you all know these people, who don't want to follow the rules. I'm not going to make any judgments. I'm just saying the rules are for each of our own safety and the safety and consideration of others. And all we need is one or two, people not following the rules, and then somehow we're responsible. And the Simpson Springs is accurate comparison, but that's a private company doing things for themselves. I consider ourselves held to a higher standard by both ourselves and the DEP, state, municipal. We have a bigger responsibility than just putting a couple gallons of water out per quarter or whatever they do. But
what I'm saying is you said you don't have somebody down there to clean it, so they're operating. What I want to know is, what are the requirements? Like, are the requirements to clean the station every hour? Are the requirements to clean the station in between every customer? Is it every day? Like, what are the requirements that we would have to find a solution for?
As far as what Simpson Spring is doing, I don't know.
No, what are the requirements from the state? To turn this thing on, what are the requirements to maintain a clean and usable filling station?
I don't know that.
Okay, is that something that you can look into, and then we can see about solutions?
Yeah, this is off agenda. Just I don't know if Mr. Grant or anyone in the water department was prepared to discuss this. So I think that we could have them back in at our next meeting to discuss it, and he may be able to have more information available at that time.
As we're at this meeting today, I think the next juncture should be you folks coming to our meeting, and I'd be happy to alert you to anything that we find out.
Sounds good.
I saw the workers working hard out on West Main Street working on in the project.
Terrific.
That's right, Jan.
That's right. Okay, so we're going to move on. Does anybody have any further questions regarding the project on West Main? Okay, thank you. So, seeing none, now, Mike, we need to vote this one too, right?
Yeah, motion to authorize the borrowing of 1.1 million.
So, Chair would entertain a motion to authorize the borrowing for 1.1 million for the overrun on the West Main Sewer project.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, me, sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Just quick for discussion. Sorry, I know we've already belabored the point here. We're making a motion to approve increase in spending on this. Can we tie into this motion a cap on what we pay the consulting firm for any future borrowing?
I don't see how you could do that. I mean, you can make that recommendation to the water and sewer department, but
Well, this contract has to be negotiated, right? As Steve said, they've been paid their initial, so there's some additional negotiation going on.
I mean, there's none going on right now. It's just if this project does go based on the projections, another 30 weeks or wherever beyond, you know, where our contract is, then.
Steve, let me make one very important point. I feel like there's some animosity towards Weston Sampson, and although they are the estimating and engineers for the project here and many others for over the years that I've worked with them in this town, the ledge is an unknown. They're conservative, as engineers are. They try their level best. Steve is a very, very good project manager. And the most important thing we have to take away from this is if you cut the engineering budget, which I feel you're alluding to, the problem you run into is literally no one watching the hen house, to use your analogy. The folks from Weston and Sampson are on site recording the depth of pipe that maybe a pipe that is cracked is set aside and not used, or the manholes are all sealed because they are well below groundwater. Their participation and observation of each step of this project is critical. So either the project moves ahead with their oversight, or if you really want to explode things, you get another engineer to watch. But you can't have a sewer main being installed 16 feet below pavement, 8 or 10 feet below the water table, with just a bunch of contractors hacking at some rock. Thank you.
Well, I think that was my question. I understand what you're saying, Luke, and I'm not putting it, you know, I mean, granted it's Weston and Sampson, but they're the people who have been managing this project, and it's way over budget. That's why I posed the question to you about should we seek additional expertise in this stage so that we're not coming back again for more money. And if that additional expertise is to put this thing back out to bid for another engineering company, then maybe that's the answer. And I guess the question, are you putting this next out to bid if another contract has to be agreed upon?
As far as this job, this West Main Street current extension to the Woodland Meadows,
Yes.
no, Weston and Sampson has all the documentation. It would be prohibitively expensive to bring someone else up to speed to take over from this point or a future point. There's nobody at this task more familiar with the structures, especially because now they have on-site oversight experience.
But I don't know, maybe, I thought Renee's point was for future phases, will that go out to bid? Because it's.
Right, this is a society of capitalism. we're absolutely open to, you know, change horses at the next level. No doubt about it. I'm just saying, for this project at least, we believe that Weston Sampson has operated in good faith and estimated using all the standard practices that we can afford. You understand that if we as a group, whether it be the Water Sewer Commission or the town, wanted to get 100-foot increments or 50-foot increments, all we have to do is pay for it. But you understand that money is not going into the ground, and any hesitation or more investigation is not putting the money in the ground where it really needs to be. The people drawing the plans don't change the rock, they don't change the contractor. They merely record and guide what is to happen, and it's a balancing act. So I'm very pleased with the performance and contact. I've talked to Steve Peterson at least 2 or 3 times a day for the past 2 weeks, at all hours, Sundays included. So I just want to make sure that we're being well served by these engineers.
So I hear what you're saying, Luke, but at the same time, you yourself said that they're responsible for the estimating and the engineering, and that's the 2 pieces that have completely failed on this. We're 105%-ish over budget, and that was Weston Sampson's responsibility. I understand that apparently this was, you know, done on the back of a napkin to meet an arbitrary deadline, and from what I recall, that was not how it was presented at town meeting to anyone else. And then the geotechnical engineering, it was that's a key part of doing due diligence, especially on a project like this. So, and this is not a reflection on Steve. It's just, if you combine it with the delays on the water treatment plant, you can understand why there's a heightened level of frustration, and we keep having these discussions.
Jack, please don't group in the water treatment plant with Indian artifacts in the
Okay,
project.
guys, this is getting way off topic, and I can appreciate the conversation, but we're getting too far off topic. You know, this discussion is around the increase of the West Main Street sewer project. So let's please keep it to that. You know, we can go around the maypole on this thing until, you know, the election on Saturday. We'll need to swear in a new selectman to finish the conversation. So let's just please stay on top here, and we have a motion and a second for the $1.1 million additional funds to be given to the West Main sewer project.
Mike, I gotta say, I don't feel like he was off topic. He's asking about accountability, right?
But we're going to start talking about the overruns on or the time and the overruns on the treatment plant, which has nothing to do. The point has been made about
It's establishing a pattern. That's it.
It's been established. It's been established. So, do we have any further discussions on the West Main Sewer project? Seeing none, Ms. Daly?
No.
Ms. Steele?
I'm voting reluctantly.
I'm sorry, Mary, could you repeat that?
Oh, am I muted? Can
No,
you
you're
hear
not
me?
muted. It just broke up for a second.
Oh, I said I'm voting yes reluctantly because we're so far into it. We've got people who are depending on this right now, but I'm not happy about it.
Mr. Conway?
Same as Mary, I'm voting yes with a bitter taste in my mouth.
Mr. Bramwell?
Yes, and like the other two, if we don't go through with this, it's almost like, I hesitate to say it, but it'd be like flushing money down the toilet.
Agreed. And I'm with Mary, Jack, and Brad. I agree. I just think if we had known what the project, if it had been presented with the true cost of it would have been a town meeting, I don't know if it would have passed. So, but because we're already so deep into it, we've got to see it through. So, Jeff, please let the record show 4 In favor and opposed?
And can I just say that, Brad, that was the best metaphor for this project.
See, when I don't have to run things, I can actually think.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Gill.
can we just have Jen, could you just add our comments into our votes, please, for the record? Instead of it just being a 4-1 vote, could you just make sure that the comments that were made, people who voted yes reluctantly, are included in the notes?
Yes, I was writing that right now.
Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Article 12,
Yes.
water bodies, Finance Committee voted no action on that. We have enough money to cover this year, so any money would be needed next spring. So we can wait until the fall to try and put more money into this account.
So, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mike, where are we on that? What item are we on? So I can,
We're on water bodies management costs.
yeah, where,
Excuse me for a minute, Mr. Chairman, if we have anything else for the Water Sewer Commission?
I don't believe we did. Does anyone have anything else for the Water Sewer Commission?
No, thank you guys. Appreciate your
Yep.
time.
Yep, thanks for coming.
Thank you too. I just wanted to say good night and thanks for listening. And I understand your positions and we'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
so
Steve.
where are we?
We're on the article for water bodies management cost.
In the draft warrant?
Yes, it's Article 12 now.
Mary, you can look at it in the article list as well.
I see our, oh, yeah, got it.
Okay.
Okay, so, Mike, you know that this issue is near and dear to me.
Yeah.
This is regarding the weeds, right? Weed
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just want to remind everybody, and for those of you who weren't on the board at the time, when we agreed to put this out to bid and then to go forward with the treatment, it was incredible money. And my concern at the time was that when things got tough, we not fund this, well, not article, but whatever, this, what do you want to call it? What is it? This, I don't know, this project, okay?
Weed
So-
control,
Weed control, yes. So, Mike, you're saying that there's enough in there to get us through a year?
So they'll be treating this spring and summer. And we have the funds for that. So now they'll have to develop another 3-year plan. And we can address that in the fall for next spring and the following spring and the spring after that.
Okay, and I mean, that seems reasonable to me under normal circumstances. So my only concern would be, I think we all know what's gonna happen with money over the next year. If this can never not be funded. I mean, what is the total amount that we spent on this? It's over $1 million, right?
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me, so I don't remember.
Yeah. I'm just throwing it out to the rest of the board. I won't be here. It'll be your vote, but this is just an article that we can't not fund this going forward. But tonight, but for town meeting in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see where we are at that point. Okay, so Mike, do you have anything else on this? We're okay for now, so we can punt this till to fall town meeting if that's a pleasure of the board. Okay. So Chairman,
I'm sorry, just for clarification, is Article 12 coming off of the warrant?
We could pull that off if that's what the board wants to vote to do. Well, we could just put no action on it. It might be easier if you put no action. The Finance Committee already voted no action. But it's up to the board.
My 2 cents would be try to make the warrant as clean as possible. So if we have the ability to take it off, let's take it off and take a fall like we did with the Town Hall Community Center project.
Yeah, I can't imagine the finance committee would be upset where they've indicated no action, so why don't we just vote to take it off?
Well, Chair's ready to entertain a motion, so whatever the pleasure is.
So I'd like the motion to remove Article 12 water bodies management costs from the warrant.
Second.
A motion and a second to remove Article 12 from the annual town meeting warrant. Any further discussion? Ms. Deli?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
I vote yes as well, unanimous.
Okay, and moving to the next article, prior year bill. We have one prior year bill, $650 from the planning board, and this was for advertising in the Sun Chronicle. So it's $605.30, and this would come out of their existing budget, but it's a prior year bill, so it has to be authorized.
Yep. Any questions on that?
No.
Entertain a motion to support the article for the bill in a prior year of 600. What did you say? $645.
$605.30.
$605.30. Even more of a bargain than we thought. So, motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Daly.
Yes.
I can't do the two together for some reason. Ms. Steele.
Yes.
Mr. Conway.
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And then going back up to the top of the warrant articles, Article 2, you already voted. Article 3, retirement expense. The Finance Committee voted to recommend using $185,735 of free cash to cover the retirement expense costs for 2 retirements in the police department, 2 in the fire department, and 1 in the communications department.
So, what was that number again? 185,000?
$185,735 from free cash.
Okay. Any questions regarding article?
Just
No,
one
I just
question.
want-
Oh, go ahead, Brett.
No, I just want to say I'm going to abstain from this only because I believe my brother is one of the retirees.
He must be your older brother.
Yes, definitely.
Hey,
Actually, it's pathetic. He's the youngest one. He's 12 years younger than me. And I went to work today.
Ms. Daly, you had a comment?
Yeah, Mike, I was just wondering, this looks like the last article that's coming from free cash. How does our balance look after we've moved
Yep.
money?
After town meeting, we'll have $221,169 in free cash.
Okay, thank you. Do you know offhand, and you may not, do you know what stabilization is?
I can tell you, sure. Getting there.
It's okay, take your time.
Stabilization right now is $2,535,168.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm, Mr. Chairman, I'm guessing that you'll entertain a motion to approve Article 3, the retirement expense in the amount of $185,000, $185,735 from free cash.
You would be correct.
Okay, I will move that.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Deli?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Conway? Mr. Bramwell?
Abstain.
And I too vote yes. So that's 4 yeses and 1 abstention. Don't start yawning, Jack.
Sorry, Mike. Long day.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. What else do we have?
The next article is collective bargaining. We'll have to wait on that.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't have any approved yet.
Okay. And then
the only other one would be the budget, the operating budget.
that's an important one. Did we already move the zoning articles back to committee?
No, you voted to approve them. And Lauren Goldberg last night was on at the finance committee, and she had them make the recommendation to refer them back to committee. Whereas before I thought she had said that the moderator was to do that, but she recommended last night that the finance committee do that. So that's going to be their recommendation on the warrant.
Okay, thank you. So we have to take, what article is the budget? 10?
The budget article is 8.
8. So do we have any questions regarding Article 8, the budget? I know we discussed it at length over the last couple of meetings. Any questions or anything that we feel is missing?
I thought we were supposed to have additional discussion in executive session.
I think that's on personnel line items. I do have a few questions on some of the other ones. If we want to go through that.
Sure, Ms. Conley.
So section 123, town manager charges and expenses has gone up substantially, especially over the past 2 years. What's driving that increase, Mike?
Let's see.
Last year it was 17,650. This year it's 41,850. So it's more than doubling.
Jack, what file are you looking at?
I'm looking at the Excel budget file that got shared out. I think I had sent it to you.
Okay, yeah.
So the charges and expenditures in the town manager's budget went actually from last year was appropriated 17,650, and this year it's 14,750.
Okay. And the version I have, that's 40,850. I wonder if the 4 and the 1 got converted.
The department request was 41,850, because that was adding 25,000 for contracted services, but that was pulled when we had to reduce the budget.
Yep, sorry, I was on the wrong column.
That's okay.
What's a mistake on that? Let's see what else we got. Are there any other big increases, Mike, that we should focus on as I scroll through here?
I don't think so, because we were forced to reduce, so I think the only, I know in inspectional services, they there's added 17,000 for a second plumbing and wiring inspector, but it's all based on whether there's inspection. If the inspections aren't there, then that money's not spent. So he's part-time, he gets called in.
We talked about the communication center, that makes sense. What's the tenor of the school department this year?
The school budget is increasing 2.5%.
Do we know what impact that's going to have on them? Because I know that they were.
We received a notice from the superintendent that he was reducing 3 positions, but then there was a retirement, so someone was getting hired back to fill a retirement, and someone was getting back to fill a long-term sub. So he was anticipating 1 layoff.
Do you have any idea where they're going to make up that shortfall? Because I think by my calculations, it's like 1.6.
Yeah, they said they were doing some in the administrative offices, they were doing some rearrangement in staff, and they weren't reducing any of the bus fees or sports fees.
Mike, do you know, do we pay up front for bus fees?
No,
The town?
you mean the schools for their transportation costs?
Yes.
No, they're broken up through the year.
Okay. So potentially if buses aren't approved because of social distancing requirements, we may not have that expense.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, no, they don't pay it up front.
I think that was part of the gamble they had made last year, Renee. I think they had deferred the expenditure for the bus contract
until October. Yeah, correct.
Where do we end up with Southeast Regional? I know they were asking for far more than.
Yeah, the budget as voted is what they're recommending. They did indicate to the finance committee they believe it will be reduced, but they're waiting to see what the state legislature finally does. There's 10 more students there this year.
For an increase of 300,000 or 250?
Yeah, 274K, like a 23% jump in that number. That's a lot. Apparently, it costs a lot to educate students. Having helped homeschool my kids for the past 3 months, I can say it's worth it.
I think we anticipated an increase in assessment with them anyways, because they did do some new building over there also.
Yeah.
I think the only other.
There's not much we can do on that one. It's an assessment. If we want to send our kids there, we have to pay it.
I think the only other one I have a question on, Mike, is miscellaneous 940. Charges and expenditures going up 12%.
That's the insurance.
No insurance, okay.
Yep.
All right. And that's it for me for this side.
Mary, you have a question? You lit up here.
No, I don't have a question. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions regarding Article 8 with the operating budget?
Again, Mike, just the question to be discussed in executive session, so I don't know if we can vote.
That's a good question. Are we returning to open session after the exec, Mike? I haven't looked at the motion yet.
The motion was not set up that way now.
But we could, right? If
Yes.
Motion.
Yeah, we could, well, we have a 10, we can't, this is we can't have a meeting past 10. Right?
Why is that?
I
You
thought there was
better
a bylaw that we couldn't continue to be at 10 o'clock.
You better figure this out because we're not having another meeting this week.
Well, we need to vote on it because they need to post the warrant tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um,
So, well, I'll have to amend the motion to, actually, Jack, can you read that motion? I'll read we don't have to do it now, but just when you do read it, just say that we will return to open session. And we'll just mute our mics on this, go to the executive session room. Once that's done, then we will return to these, to this Zoom, open the mics back up. We can do that, right? No, you can't do two Zooms at once, can you? See, Renee, this is why I hate remote participation.
well, you could do a breakout session, but I think we have it set separately, and I don't know if the breakout sessions are on this. I would say we just disconnect and then reconnect.
Yeah, and Mike, if you want to send me the language to go to.
It's in the Dropbox.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a folder, Jack, for executive session, and then at the declaration by the chairman, he'll have to change the last sentence, and then the motion by the member. I can read it. I have it up if you
Oh,
want.
yeah, good. Yeah, please, that would be perfect. Okay, so we'll come back to open session to vote Article 8. So we'll move on to town manager's report.
Just one thing, we've had a request from the gas company. They've got to put, I think it's 4,000 feet of gas line down Leonard Street, and they feel it will be more productive to shut the road. The police chief, the fire chief don't have an issue with it. I just wanted to make sure that the board was okay with that. They'll always have access for emergency vehicles. And then it'll be closed to traffic while they're doing the gas line.
Do we need to comment on that, or just FYI type thing?
Yeah, if you could just let me know, vote to say it's okay.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Mike, I'm assuming that they are paying for the officers to be there, and then are they posting signs?
Yes, and they will be paying for the details because it's part of the project.
Okay, and what are the dates and times?
They're gonna start, they want to start tomorrow, they want to close the road, and they'll be working from 7 to 4, I believe it is, every day.
Until when?
I'm not sure the length of that, I'll have to check.
Do we need it
Depends
to?
if they hit the ledge or not.
If they don't, we should hire that engineering firm.
Do we need the end date for the motion? That's why I asked.
No.
No, just until they're completed.
Yep,
Unless they hit rock, I don't think it's gonna take them that long. That's
it
why they
shouldn't take
want
that
to-
long. Yeah.
Okay, Brad, are you?
Can we request a bit more notice next time? 'Cause I think they like.
I'm abstaining from this one also, only because the representative from the gas company is my brother-in-law, who called
Who
me
aren't you related to,
the
Brad?
day before. I'm sorry?
I said, who aren't you related to?
Hey, with the size families that I have, I'm related to a lot, but he called me to find out, because he was talking to a police detail who told him that he couldn't just close the road. And so I talked to him the day before yesterday, and I directed him to the police chief, the fire chief, and to Keith Silva. And so I told him it was kind of late, so he does know that it's not kosher to come to us on such a late date, and that they should be notifying me of others and everything like that. So I apologize for my brother-in-law. And I think he's learned his lesson.
Excellent.
Okay, so I'll motion then to approve the closure of Leonard Street beginning on 6/17 for the duration of the project between the hours of 7 a.m. and 4 p.m.
So moved.
She moved it, we need a second from you, Mary.
So moved. Oh, second. Yeah.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? And Ms. Daly. When I say the Ms. and that, it just, I don't know why, but it just,
You can say Renee.
Daly, that's fine, but if I say Ms., it's just, so, you know what Ms. Steele,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell?
I'll abstain again.
Oh, that's right, yeah, and I will vote yes, so unanimous, thank you. Anything else, Ms. Units? Okay, Selectmen's report and mail.
I just have one thing. Sad day for Norton on this coming Saturday, when Roach Brothers will close its doors on the 23rd. I just want to thank them for being who they are and giving back so much to the town. Very sad to see them go. I wish all the employees well and they're able to find employment elsewhere. Sad to lose the only grocery store in town.
Yeah,
Agreed.
to piggyback on that, I think it'd be nice if the board sent a letter to their corporate headquarters thanking them for their community support throughout the years they were here, and which they didn't find it necessary to leave.
Good idea.
That's right, I worked at the store, it was my go-to store, that when I moved right here from Bay Road in 2006, and was my go-to store, because I worked there and I know the employees very well, and it is gonna be, it's gonna be tough to see our only grocery store to be gone, but we still, high school will still go to the produce barn or Fresh Catch in Norton, right?
Right on.
Renee, do you have anything, Selectmen report and mail?
I have one thing, similarly, but this is for our fellow selectmen, Miss Mary Steele, to thank her for years of service, or decade plus of service, and certainly, she was, from my own experience, she welcomed me to the board. She's certainly been a mentor for me and a good sounding board as well, and I've learned a lot in the short time that I've sat next to her. And sometimes almost ending up in her lap, but I certainly appreciate everything that she's done for the town before I became involved, and personally everything that she's done for me since I have been on the board. So thank you, Mary, so much. And you're not getting out of the town stuff, just so you know.
Could have told her at Thursday's meeting.
Mr. Bramwell, do you have anything?
First, I want to echo how much we're going to miss Mary. She was wonderful to work with, and welcomed me when I first got on, and it's been a pleasure to work with. And I appreciate it, all the time that she's given to the town. And on another note, I was thinking today that with the opening of businesses and things like that, we used to have like a business highlight session for the town selectmen's meetings. And I was wondering if maybe it might be a nice idea to extend invitations to like maybe some of the restaurants, taverns, things like that, or any business that's open and serving the public, to maybe come on and give them like 5 minutes on the selectmen's meeting to kind of, promote their business and kind of explain how they're doing business now, so people realize that they're there and they're still serving the people. So I just thought it might be a good opportunity for us to help support some of the local businesses.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I think that's a great idea too. And just to mention, kind of to piggyback off that, Brad, the IDC is putting together a list of the restaurants who are reopening, with some additional information. Sandy Overhead is actually taking on that charge, so we'll be posting that online. Maybe that's something we can share here as well.
Yeah, and then I think, like a first come, first serve basis. And, you know, people like, I don't know, what you might do, like 5-10 minutes, and they can just kind of explain to us how they're handling things and what they're offering for the people. So I know being confined and, you know, in the house all the time and wearing my mask, you don't really know who's doing what for people now, and it'd be nice to get the word out that, yeah, that we're open and you don't have to wear armor, just a mask, come on in and we'll take care of you. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bramwell. And Mary, I'm going to step over you first, and then I'll give you a hand. I just wanted to say it was an absolute privilege for me to serve with you over the past several years, and before that, while I was on finance committee. And I appreciate that you've been such a great role model to my girls and to all the kids in town, and you've been a very strong advocate for the town, and we're able to listen to all sides of the issue and make a clear decision based on that, and any personal stuff into it. So, thank you very much for being a true example to civil service, and we're going to miss you until we get you on FinCom next year.
Thanks, Mike. I don't know if that'll happen, but I do appreciate everybody's kind words. After 15 years, it's definitely bittersweet for me. I think I'm as sad to be leaving this position. I am excited about, embarking on new adventures. In my decision not to run for re-election, I think it was the right decision for both me and the town. I've definitely grown over the years, and I'm a better person because of my role as a Norton Selectman, and I'd like to think that maybe the town is a bit better because of it as well. Change is good. A new member will bring new ideas, new enthusiasm, and energy to the board, which is definitely going to be needed as the board tries to navigate the town through the next few months and years in this totally ever-changing environment. I'd like to thank all the townspeople who have supported me through the years. The words of thanks, encouragement, advice, all of it has kept me motivated. I'd also like to thank Mr. Unit and the town employees and volunteers on the variety of boards and committees that I've worked with for different projects over the years. We really are lucky to have so many people who are so dedicated to making this town such a great place to live. Right, Peter?
That's right, Mary. That's right, Marianne and I remember the car rides and talk after meetings and all sorts of things that you're going to mean the selectman's going to miss you, which elected and New England, and we will still keep touch on Facebook and the phone, right?
Absolutely, Peter. No question about it. Actually, a very special thanks to this Board of Selectmen and also previous ones. I've been so fortunate to work on boards with individuals who always put the town first. And, although, we've agreements on our opinions on how outcomes should be, we've always been able to agree to disagree and get the work done. Our respect for each other and the ability to work together has allowed us to be productive in a way that other towns aren't quite so lucky. Of course, you guys all know how much time it takes out of your personal lives to commit to be a Board of Selectmen member. And over the years, I've taken that time selfishly for my family, who selflessly gave it, along with their never-ending support and encouragement, right back to me. I've missed the majority of Thursday night meals, basketball games, baseball games, ice cream socials, parent-teacher conferences, and my kids never made me feel guilty about missing their events. And my husband was always so willing to pick up the slack while I was gone and just make sure that things got done around the house. They know how much I love and appreciate them, and tonight I just want the town to know how much they made it possible for me to fulfill my Board of Selectmen responsibilities through the years. So, a little emotional tonight. But Jack, Brad, Renee, Mike, it's been such a pleasure to work with you guys. You're doing such a good thing for the town. I will miss seeing you guys every Thursday night. And although I'm going to be on the other side of the table now, just know that I will continue to support you in any way that I can. And thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Well said. So we, with that, I think we're going to, I think we're gonna count the minutes until a future meeting. At this point, I don't think there's any harm in that. We make a determination. We have a question from the Norton Media Center that how are we going to dip in and out of this open session, which frankly, I don't have an answer to. I don't really know logistically how to accomplish this, because I think when Mike were to shut down his computer, then the host is going to end the meeting and everyone gets kicked out and they won't know when we get back in.
I'm not gonna shut it down. I'm just gonna mute and minimize and then go into the other site.
Do you have another computer, Mike? Because I don't think you can run two Zooms at the same time.
I don't think you can run two Zooms simultaneously.
Can you do it on your phone?
Well, Charlene can keep it open as a host. And then we can go back in.
Okay. So with that being said, hold on, bear with me for 1 second. So Renee, you have your, oh, sugar, I just shut it. Oh, God.
You have to read the declaration first, right?
Yeah, I'll get that in a second.
Okay.
Too many windows open. I think the only thing I detest more than Zoom is Dropbox. Okay. So I declare under General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection A3, that the purpose of the executive session will be to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with union and non-union personnel. Because a discussion of the strategy in open session could compromise the purpose of the executive session, and with the board to return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session.
I move that the board go into executive session under General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, for the purposes and reasons declared by the chairman, and with the board to return to open session thereafter. We just need a second.
Just need a second.
Second.
Ms. Deli,
Yes.
Ms. Steele,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell,
Yes.
and I too vote yes. So we will return here shortly. Chair would entertain a motion to reopen open session.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second?
Second.
Watchman, Rotten.
Ms. Deli,
Yes.
Ms. Steele,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, so now Chair would entertain a motion to support Article 8.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And do we need to provide clarification, Mike, on the amount within the motion?
Mike, you're muted.
Big unit.
All right. Yep. So you need the total, budget?
Yep. What is
Mike,
it?
I have it in front of me.
Okay.
Article 8, fiscal year 21 operating budget in the amount of $60,818,873.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Good catch, Renee. Seeing none. Ms. Deli,
Yes.
Ms. Steele,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell,
Yes.
and I too vote yes.
So I think it's only fitting that we let Mary make the motion to end her final meeting.
I was gonna let it adjourn without it.
Honestly, you guys, I've been waiting 3 months.
I thought it was longer than that.
I thought we'd been on this meeting for 3 months tonight.
This was a doozy to end of, the end of our meeting. So I make a motion that we end the meeting.
Second.
Second motion and a second to adjourn, but before we do, once again, want to thank Ms. Steele and Mike, if you could post an agenda for Thursday for about 6 hours. So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Ms. Deli,
Yes.
Ms. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell,
Just for Miriam to say no.
well, you know, to make it interesting, I'm going to say no. Ms. Steele.
Why are you saying no?
Well, because now the deciding vote comes down to you.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I was wondering. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.